Hello and a very warm welcome to the Open Door Show from Property CEO. My name's Ian Child and I'm going to be with you for, well, about the next half hour or so. What exactly is Open Door all about? Well, it's your chance to take a dive into the world of small-scale property development. On Open Door, we talk to the movers and the shakers out there, all in an effort to give you the lowdown on what's happening in the world of property. Now, we also take a cheeky look some of the areas that we think could be a good opportunity for new developers to take a look at. And of course, as a property development training company, we get to see all the things that our students encounter on their journeys. And so the other thing that we like to do is to shine a bit of a light on the challenges that can get in the way of people on their journey, as well as hopefully share a little insight on how people can overcome them. Now, today, I want to talk about public relations, better known in most quarters as good old PR. Now, I've used PR companies, both large and small, over the years, kind of ranging from expensive London agencies to much kind of smaller organizations. And one of the things that I've always found to be true is that the leverage you can get from good PR can be absolutely huge, but you need to do it intelligently. Now, I think for people in property, it might be a bit tricky maybe to work out how PR should feature in your world. For example, what are the benefits of good PR? What exactly should you be doing with it? Well, today I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Chantal Cooke from leading PR company Panpathic Communications. Now, I've worked with Chantal for a number of years, and I'm quietly confident that she's going to be able to shed some light on all of our PR questions. So without further ado, Chantal, are you there?
I am here.
Fantastic. Great to have you with us. A very big and warm welcome to Open Door. Great to have you here. Maybe to kind of kick things off, perhaps if you could share a little bit maybe about your background and a bit about you, how you came to be running your own PR agency.
Sure. So my background's actually as a journalist. I spent 25 years working as a journalist, mainly in radio. So a lot of time at the BBC and commercial sector, both in the UK and abroad. And then in 2002, when Ofcom was licensing a lot of new DAB licenses, so we were moving kind of from FM to DAB, I put together with my business partner a bid for some DAB licenses, and long story short, we ended up winning 11 licenses across the UK and launched the UK's very first ethically focused radio station called Passion for the Planet, which I ran for nearly 10 years before we offloaded the licenses to DAB licenses because, as everybody knows, that didn't quite work as fast as Ofcom promised it would. And instead, we took the station online. So it's still available online. I still work. So I spend some of my time producing features and so on and doing interviews for Passion for the Planet. But at the same time, obviously, it meant kind of looking for something else to do. And I was approached by a publisher and they asked me to write a book. I have a handy copy here. How about that? They asked me to write a book on basically how to do your own PR, and it's called PR Demystified, how to get free publicity by giving journalists what they really need. And that is basically what the book's about. It's how to do your own PR. And they wanted a book written from a journalistic perspective. So that's what I did. And of course, that led to people saying to me, oh, you're a journalist, you know what you're doing. Could you do my PR for me? And before I knew it, I had a PR agency, and now here we are, sort of another 10 years. Yeah, crikey, it's very amazing how the time goes. Another 10 years or so later, as a team of 5 of us, and it's a lot of fun actually. It's nice seeing it from a different side, and it's nice understanding both sides as well. So knowing what a journalist wants and looking at it from the client perspective, it's I enjoy that.
Fantastic. Great introduction. And just tell me, is it important in PR to get a book plug in the first 5 minutes?
Well, if you know what you do, you want to plug your stuff anytime you can. Come on.
Excellent. So I guess maybe the first question, hopefully is an easy one. Start for 10. What exactly is PR?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because it can be a bit confusing, and a lot of people think it's just marketing. And yes, it is a form of marketing. Of course it is, but it's not it often doesn't come under the same banner, if you see what I mean. So often if you're writing copy for marketing or you're thinking about marketing, PR doesn't either come into it or it's kind of approached in the wrong way. So in answer to your question, PR is essentially getting third-party organizations or publications, which we can think of as either radio, television, online, offline, print, whatever it happens to be, but something that's external to you to publicize you in some way without you buying advertising. So it's not about paying for advertising. It's more about organically getting them to do that. And you do that obviously by having something interesting to say. So I suppose, yeah, the short version is it's stuff that you can't control, but you're getting them to talk about you so that you are reaching a brand new audience, not just your own audience. Understood. I think where sometimes the confusion and overlap can happen is obviously with social media. So doing your own social media, that's not PR, that's doing your own social media because you're talking to the audience that you already have. Getting onto other people's social media, I would consider that part of PR. And depending on which agency you're working with will depend on whether it's included or it's looked at separately. But essentially, to me, I kind of see it as all part of the same thing. I'm trying to get somebody else to talk about my client, and money is not changing hands.
Fantastic. So I guess the next obvious question, I think when people think of PR and where it applies and who does it, property developers in particular and property investors maybe kind of feel that they're probably a little bit down the league table when it comes to users of PR. So what does good PR look like if you're a property investor or property developer?
I think it depends whereabouts you are in your kind of property investor, property developer journey. But let's say you're starting out. So we'll start from there and we can kind of move up. So if you're starting out, no one knows who you are. And obviously one of the difficulties is to get people to take you seriously, whether it's for the money or get the agent to kind of, move you to the top of the list with the good deals, all of those kinds of things, all requires people to know who you are and to kind of have a sense of trust in you. So obviously we can't make that happen overnight, and it's not going to happen instantly with PR either. But all of the things that you do, so part of it's obviously how you turn up for the meeting, the language that you use, and just being a confident person is going to give a lot of that. But equally, being able to say, look, I've been published. Look, I'm real. I'm not a fly by night. I'm not a scam artist who's, never appeared online and will disappear again in 10 minutes kind of thing once I've got all your money. It's about showing that you know what you're talking about, that you're a kind of bona fide person, and that you're here for the long haul. And PR can really, really help with that. I suspect your question there would be, yes, but you're not a property developer yet. So how do you talk about that? And for that, I would say, so starting at the beginning of the journey, and then we can work our way through, is at the beginning, it doesn't matter that you don't know anything about property development. You're not trying to say that, look, I've done 50 developments, look at me, I know what I'm doing. What you are actually saying is, I know how money works. I know how business works. I know how to make sure that this will succeed. I have got experience. So actually the PR that you can do can be about your other experience. So I know that one of the things that you talk about a property CEO is about the fact that there are lots of transferable skills. And that's absolutely true. So think about those transferable skills that you've got, which will help. And then those are the things that you can get PR for, because it's not just about, in the beginning, about, are you the world's leading expert on small scale property development? I think property CEO has that, that moniker already. But it's about, as I said, can I trust you? Are you there? Do you exist? Are you going to disappear in 5 minutes? And I think being online, being featured in the media is a way of showing that you are bona fide, that you are there for the long haul, and that you do have a certain skill set, whatever that skill set could be. So if your background is finance, get your PR about finance. If it's about marketing, actually do some PR around your marketing skills. Even if it's about running a restaurant, let's say, well, let's get some PR around the fact that you've run a business and you know what you're talking about. And I think that will really, really help. So for the beginning of the journey, that's where I'd start.
Fantastic. No, I think it's so true. I think a lot of people approach property and property development in particular with that kind of view that they got the L plates on, and they're new into this world and everybody else knows lots about it, but they know nothing. The reality is that they are simply an entrepreneur that's seen a business opportunity that they want to take advantage of, and they're going to assemble a team that's going to do it. And like you say, you're absolutely right. They're going to be using their skills to do it. Because the irony about all of that is that without the entrepreneur doing their bit, nobody else gets paid. They are actually the catalyst that kind of makes things happen. And as a result, whilst they might feel like they're the least knowledgeable, they're actually the most important. So no, it's a really good point. So when we come to kind of thinking about how you could leverage PR if you have a property business of some description. So let's say you're a property developer, you've got a fledgling property development brand that you've created. What would be your kind of some of your top tips about how you could go about leveraging PR to make that business more successful?
I think so. The first thing would be, I know this sounds like slightly sort of roundabout, but it would be to do some PR. And I will talk about how in a second, but I think get over, some people have a block on, as you say, on doing it for all the reasons you talked about. But actually, if you think about the best entrepreneurs, they're the ones who get out there and talk. They're the ones who get out there and say, look at me. And that's what you need. And that's where PR will be really, really good. So I think to begin with, it's about the skills that you have that maybe you're bringing to your property development business. That's the first thing. And then as you're more experienced, maybe as you finished your first development, then I would do a case study perhaps on your first development, how you started out, you found this site, and on that note, always take shed loads of pictures. You can never have too many pictures. So literally almost the day that you rock up and look at it, start taking some pictures. And then obviously when your offer's in and you're there and you're actually doing things, take pictures. As the first bricks get knocked over or whatever it happens to be that you're doing, or the diggers come in or whatever, take pictures. Always take pictures all the way through, because the next piece of PR would be around doing a case study. And then once you've got your first development under your belt and you're kind of looking at your second and third and so on, that's when you can start then talking about your skills as a small scale property developer. So that's the kind of the sequence that I would go through. In terms of things that make good PR angles, the easiest way to get coverage is always advice. So you should always think about the reader. Don't think about yourself. Think about what the reader wants to read, or the viewer or the listener or whatever it happens to be. And if you think about them first, then it's much easier to think about what would be useful PR. So if I'm thinking about at the beginning of the skills, as I say, let's say you work in finance right now, but you've never done property development, I might want to know some top tips on how to budget, or top tips on choosing the right ISAs, or whatever it happens to be, whatever skill set you have within finance, or top tips on chasing up invoices even, so it depends which sector of the finance industry you work in. Those top tips are things that people want to know. So that is the article that you write, and that is the article that you offer to the journalists, and that is what will get them interested. And if you keep that same thinking in your mind all the way through, you kind of can't go wrong. So if we say, here you are at the beginning, talking about your early skills, your pre-property development skills, if you like, and now let's leapfrog you to being a bona fide property developer with that first one under your belt, and here you're off to do your next one. Well, now you can talk about your property development skills, and you can talk about top tips for that, top tips for finding a great deal, or maybe the opportunities that are available in your local area, for example. That will get your local press interested, and local press can be good, especially if you're dealing obviously with local agents and so on. So always think about the reader first, what they'd like to hear, and then how you can deliver that to them. The bit in the middle is the case study that I mentioned. So people love to hear stories of how someone has made it happen. And hopefully in your first development, you've made a reasonable amount of money, because kind of that's the idea.
That's the idea. Yep.
It is indeed. So you want to make sure obviously talk about that. And journalists will want to know. They will want to know what's the profit that you made at the end of it, because that's the bit that everybody wants to know. It's like, yeah, I don't want to know that, yeah, you did it, but I don't know anything about the numbers, and maybe you made a loss. Maybe you were a disaster. I don't know. What they want to know is, where did you start? How did you do it? Where did you get the money from? How much money did you walk away with? So as long as you're willing to talk about those things, and of course the numbers add up, let's hope in your first development you didn't make a loss, then that's a really, really good case study as well. And the case studies can often get you quite big newspaper publication, newspaper coverage as well. So those are the two ways. the advice-based pieces, and then as appropriate, the case study.
Fantastic. No, I think that's interesting. I think so many people just generally when they get into a new environment, and yeah, property development's no exception, kind of think that they don't actually have a story to tell because it hasn't been written yet. And the same thing actually applies when it comes to networking. We often tell students, go out and speak at events, and they'll be like, well, what should I speak about? Because I haven't done any property development yet. And it's like, no, you do know other stuff. Speak about your top business tips, speak about your journey, speak about other things that you know, other things that might help or interest other people. And of course, you're then engaged with the audience who think you're wonderful. You don't have to go around and collect business cards because they already know who you are. You've got credibility. And the fact that you just at the end mentioned, by the way, I'm a property developer, come and speak to me if you're interested. Yeah, you've already kind of got the door open. So no, amazing. Same thing in PR by the sound of it.
Absolutely. No, what you said is absolutely right. And if you just think for a second about what things have been successful, and it's always where the visibility and the marketing, including the PR, has been the best. So if we go back, you and I will remember this, maybe not everybody will, but go back and think about Betamax versus VHS videos. Betamax, better system than VHS. VHS put way more money into the marketing than Betamax did. Which one won? VHS won. And we can go through, and there are time and time and time again where there is an example of exactly what worked, not because it was the best product or even the best person, it was because of the publicity. And I'm sure we've all come across people who have fantastic PR, and yet we sit there and look at them and go, but they're rubbish, they're just useless. And unfortunately, that may be the case. But people flock to them, people give them money, people employ them, people, work with them, etc., because their PR is so good. So really, give yourself a helping hand up, get yourself out there, get the name out there, go speaking, go doing the articles, all of those things. I cannot emphasize what a difference it can make.
Fantastic. Absolutely no idea, folks, what she's talking about with Betamax and all that, but I'll Google it later. So any other tips in terms of then kind of just on that sort of, I guess, that same track of PR, anything else that you'd advise people to do?
Yeah, I think with all of these things, it's much better to do something than to do nothing. So often we sit there and worry about getting it perfect. Oh, have I written the perfect press release? Have I written the perfect this or whatever? Am I contacting them in the perfect way? And it doesn't have to be perfect. Something is always better than nothing. So yes, a perfect press release with the correct kind of pitch and approaching the journalist in the right way. Of course, that's the best way of doing it. But that's not always possible, and you've got to get started. And let's face it, if you get started, you'll pretty soon work out what's working for you and what isn't anyway. So I would say don't get yourself wrapped up in the it has to be perfect. Just get started. So the key thing really is you need to write a press release. A press release is always best with a do what it says on the tin title. So if you're telling them that you want to offer 5 tips for how to open a restaurant, for example, then that's the title. 5 tips on opening a restaurant. Don't try and be clever with it, because no one wants to try and work that out. And the publication itself will do the clever headlines. So if you think of it, publications like The Sun, who are well known for their rather bonkers headlines, it's part of what they do. They have a whole team of people employed just to do those headlines. That's not your job. Your job is do what it says on the tin. I said, if it's 5 top tips to opening a restaurant, that's what you call it. 5 top tips to opening a restaurant. And then you give them what you've told them they're going to get. So you tell them what's in the tin, and then you give them what's in the tin, basically. And that is how a press release or an article pitch should always work, is kind of keep it really, really clear, keep it really obvious, and then send it out to journalists. Don't sit there worrying about it, send it out.
And do you need to be too worried about the quality? Not everybody is a wordsmith. Is it worth getting it kind of perhaps knocked into shape by somebody that is a better wordsmith than you, or maybe using a copywriter on Fiverr.com or something like that? What would you recommend?
I think it is worth it, to be honest. So even if your pitch isn't perfect, or even if the press release isn't structured perhaps in the right way, at least having clear English, well written and so on is going to get you a long way, because the number of press releases and things that I receive with my journalist hat on, where I read it and I just go, I have no idea what they're trying to tell me, because no one's kind of sense checked it in a way. So even if I get something where I go, it's not perfectly written, maybe the structure isn't quite right, or I'm thinking, no, you've hidden the really good story down the bottom, I'm still reading it because it's readable. And then hopefully I've got the time to pull it out and decide what to do. Although I should flag up that no journalist is ever desperate for content. They all have way more people pitching to them and press releases and articles and so on than they could ever cope with. So if someone's saying to you, oh, they're all desperate for content, they don't know what they're talking about. And that's why obviously putting, making it clear as to what it is, keeping your story up to the top of the press release or the article and so on, all important. But if I can read it and I can understand it as a journalist, then I'll at least be able to pull out what it is, and I'll be able to find the story in there. Also, it will give me comfort that if I say to you, yeah, I would like a comment on this, please, or can I book you to appear on my podcast or something like that, if it looks like it's at least well written, I'm going to get the feeling that I'm going to get something decent out of you. Whereas if I look at it and it's full of proofing errors, I mean, that's a real no-no. Definitely get someone to proof it for you. But if it's full of proofing errors or weird grammar or, missing sentences or, just stuff that shouldn't be there, then yeah, that's going to put a journalist off. Not because they're looking for you to be the best writer in the world, they're not, but they are looking for you to be able to deliver something with a little bit of quality. And I think that shows a lack of quality, but it also, to be honest, shows a lack of respect as well. If you don't get your work checked before you send it out to somebody, that's not really respecting the person you're sending it to.
No, it makes perfect sense. And then I guess at some point there is a line that gets crossed where you might want to be thinking about, well, I can do a certain amount myself, as you've just said. But if I want to take things up a notch, I presumably need to work with a PR company like your own. What are the kind of considerations for, I guess, making that change? And how would you go about finding a decent PR agency?
Okay, so I suppose the first thing to think about is, do you want to do it yourself or don't you? So it is possible to do it yourself. There are books and training courses, and it's not impossible to work out how to do it. I suspect you will never get quite as good results as you would do if you used a good agency, but you will save money. So, you have to kind of weigh that up, don't you? Resource versus time, that kind of thing. And if you fancy doing it yourself, then my take on these things is always outsource first the things that you don't like doing. Because those are the things you'll look at for ages and go, I really ought to do that, but you never actually get round to. So PR only works if you actually get round to it. So if you really fancy doing it, you think, I love doing this, then great, go ahead and do it yourself. If on the other hand, you're thinking, yeah, I really should be doing this, but the whole thought of doing it just fills me with, makes my whole sort of heart sink, as it were, then that's definitely the point at which you want to think about getting an agency. And of course, the other time would be when you're thinking, yep, I've got way too much on my plate. I would much rather be, sitting on the beach or whatever it is while somebody else is doing all the hard work. Also, the right time to get an agency to do it, and you can outsource it to you. So that's how I would decide kind of the if and when. Then in terms of choosing an agency, there's two ways of going. You can go to a specialist agency. So there are agencies that specialize particularly in working with people in property in a variety of different ways. And the advantage of going there is obviously they know the property industry inside out, and they'll have worked with a lot of the magazines before. The disadvantage of going there is that you will be one small client in amongst a whole bunch of other clients, which means you are basically competing with their clients. And that's a bit of a downside, particularly if you're not their biggest client. So the other way of going is to go with a generalist agency who will have a wide range of different clients, usually within a particular area. So, for example, if I look at Panpathic, we're a generalist agency, but we tend to very specifically work with small businesses. We don't work with massive corporates. So that's kind of our wheelhouse, is working with smaller businesses with smaller budgets, but helping them kind of punch much higher than their weight. But, you can look for a generalist agency. And then the other thing to look for if you are going down that route is one that doesn't have competing clients, because otherwise you're just getting the same problem as you are if you'd gone with a specialist agency. So, for example, we would not take on, working with Property CEO, we wouldn't take on another property training company. And if we did want to take on another property company of some sort, we would come and talk to our existing client first to make sure there wasn't a problem with the overlap. Because what I don't want to be doing is coming up with a great idea and then going, oh, who do I give that to? Or a journalist comes to me and says, we want someone to talk about property. And I have to sit there and go, this client or that client. Don't want that to happen. Sure. So again, entirely where you feel most comfortable, generalist or specialist, but those are the kind of the two ways of looking at it. And then when you're auditioning the PR company, the thing I would be asking them about, the thing that I would want most of all is it's not about contacts. I know everyone always asks that question. Have you got contacts at the right publications? It's like, yes, of course I have. I'm a PR agency. We have those contacts. We have those relationships. That's not the question to ask. It's a bit like going into a restaurant and saying, do you have food? Yeah, of course I have food. What you should be asking is, what ideas have you got? Because what often happens with the PR agency is they'll if they're just focusing on their contacts, they'll use up their contacts in the beginning, and then they've run out of ideas because they've called all their mates and gone, we've got this new client. Their mates hopefully have come up with an idea for them, covered it, and then what happens? And we find a lot of clients come to us when they've used somebody else first, paid a lot of money in the beginning and had good results, that's fine. And then it's tailed off and nothing's happened afterwards. So the questions I would be asking are, I would be working out, can they come up with a new idea every month? Can they come up with lots of different ways to get me in front of the press? Because it's a numbers game. You want to get as many press releases and articles and things out there on a regular basis. I'm not saying bombard them every day or whatever, there's a pattern to it, but it's about having those lots of different ideas, because the journalists these days, they don't have time to think of the ideas. That's the PR's job. So that's the first thing I would ask. And the second thing I would ask is about deliverables and guarantees. So what will they deliver for the money? Not necessarily how much work will they do, because work is not the issue here. It's results that are the issue. So what are the deliverables, and do they guarantee any kind of results? And those are the key questions that I would ask.
And sort of finally, I guess, one question that I guess a lot of people would have is just in terms, you mentioned budget. Is this something that can be cost effective for people to do? What sort of budget would you be looking for if in that instance where you're starting out as a property developer and you just want to kind of start generating some PR, but you feel like you need the help of an agency?
Sure. So it depends a little bit on what you're getting them to do and, and how often you want the press releases to go out and those sorts of things. However, to give you a ballpark, because I know one of those answers of it depends is not very helpful, really, is it? So to give you a ballpark, I would say somewhere between £500 and £1,000 a month is going to get you what you need. I think lower than 500, I'd really be wondering what's going to be happening, and the chances are what that would be a PR person perhaps working for you 1 day a month or maybe 2 days a month if you're lucky, and that doesn't work for PR. Journalists come back at all sorts of times. You need to be jumping on stuff, so just having someone who says I'll do the first and third Thursday of the month for you isn't going to work. You need it to go across the whole period. So I would say somewhere between 500 and 1,000. If they're charging you more than 1,000, I suspect, unless you are a massive property developer, where you'll probably be charging 5 or 6 or 10, 15,000 pounds a month. But at kind of the small scale level we're talking about, I don't think you need to pay any more than that.
Wow. Fantastic. Chantal, thank you so much for sharing that all with us. Absolutely tons of information. If someone would like a hand with their PR and wanted to get in touch with you, with Panpathic, what would be the best way of going about it?
Okay, they can drop me an email at chantal@panpathic.com, and I think you're going to put that in the show notes and so on. So chantal@panpathic.com. And what I do is I'll offer all the people from property, I'll say that again. What I'll do is I can offer everybody the opportunity to have a 20-minute free kind of exploratory call, if you like. So that call is all about just if you've got PR questions, maybe you're worrying about, is this right for me? Do I have the right expertise? Whatever, then just book in a call, 20 minutes. I'll have a chat with you, answer any questions you've got. Don't worry, it's not a veiled sales call. This is kind of like my give, if you like. I do believe in paying it forward if I can. And then if at the end of it you want to work with us, well, fantastic. But equally, if you decide PR is not for you, well, hopefully that's 20 minutes that's usefully spent anyway, because you've made a decision. Or if you go, actually, I do want to do this, but I want to do it myself, then again, I can point you in the right direction. So drop me an email. We can book in a 20-minute call and then go from there.
Fantastic, Chantal. Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. As I said, some absolutely fantastic information there. So yeah, thank you very much. All the best to you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So there you go. Hopefully you found that useful. As I said, good PR can really work wonders. And sometimes, most certainly, I've seen that a little can go a long way. So make sure you got it on your to-do list and get it on your radar. And of course, be sure to reach out to Chantal at Panpathic if you'd like some help with it. Well, that's it for this open door. As ever, it would be really good to hear what you think. So please do put your comments below. And in the meantime, if you're interested in learning more about how you can get into small-scale property development, we put together some pre-recorded training for you. It's hosted by the inimitable Mr. Richie Clapson. And even better, it's absolutely free. So you can get your hands on that on our website. So propertyceo.co.uk/SFR, where SFR stands for six-figure roadmap. Right, that's it from me. Please do be sure to like and subscribe. Take care of yourselves. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.